you. Will the clerk call the roll?
Commissioner Chadwick?
Here.
Commissioner Guile?
Here.
Commissioner Price?
Here.
Commissioner Larson?
Here.
No, Commissioner Smith is absent.
Move on next to a public forum where citizens may speak on county government, usually limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone that would like to come forward today? Seeing none, we'll move on to regular business. Item number 1.
The approval of the agenda for the public forum as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the agenda for the public forum as presented.
I second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes. Item number 2.
Checking my mic, it keeps turning off here. Approval of county commission minutes for October 11, 2016.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the county commission minutes of October the 11th, 2016 as presented.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes. Item number 3.
We have a Waterwell Road speed limit discussion with Neil Cable here, our county engineer.
Morning, Mr. Cable, and I'll just preface this by saying we did go over this last week a little bit in the study session, and this is just the public forum portion of this, and so please proceed.
Okay. I previously distributed the traffic counts and traffic information that we had distributed earlier this year in one of the previous commission meetings, and then I kind of summarized it in a packet that was sent out for you guys this past week. And I can go through that, or I can just try and summarize it real quick, if you'd like.
If you could summarize it just for the TV audience as much as...
Okay.
And then I'll open it up to any public discussion or questions.
First, I'd start just by saying that we do respect and share everyone's sincere and deeply held concern for safety. You know, that's what we do. We do all we can with the limited resources we have in Road and Bridge to make the county roads as safe as possible. With respect to speed limits, we conduct engineering traffic studies on all roads, and particularly when those, particular areas of concern are raised by citizens. On this particular section of road, we've done 6 separate traffic engineering studies over the last 14 years, starting, actually they go back before 2002. I just provided you these 6 studies. Just summary real quick of what those studies have shown. The speeds, the average speed, the 85th percentile speed, and the traffic volumes have been real consistent for the past 14 years. There are a few motorists at speed, which I'm sure if you're in the city of Saline, they speed too. It's some people, regardless if it's posted or not, are going to push that limit. And the previous information I sent you is the speed limits are really not effective in slowing people down. And also, according to research, the 85th percentile speed is the safest speed. It's also the point at which your chances of being in a crash are the lowest, because that's the area with the least speed variation. What you actually want is not some people going real slow and some people going fast. You try to keep a steady movement. The accident history out on that section of road does not show that speed has been a significant factor in any of the events. I've got all the accidents for the past, I don't know how far back they go, maybe 20 years. So the results of the engineering investigation should govern speed alteration decisions in order to protect integrity and consistency of the process of establishing speed limits throughout the county. The engineering investigations do not support posting a lower speed limit on that section of road.
All right, any more questions that were not asked last week, or any information that is needed? All right, I'll open this up to public discussion at this time.
I'm Alan Lindholm. I live at 3647 South Lightville Road, Salina. And as I expressed at the meeting last week, because of the aggregate of the rock and stuff that they're using on the county roads now, it creates a lot of dust. That's one of the major things on that road is the dust and then the washboards. I believe a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit would get the dust down to where people can see what they're following or who they're following. Otherwise, you have to stay at least a quarter of a mile back from a vehicle in order to see where you are and see the dangers of the road. We had a wreck out there 2 weeks ago, which I showed you pictures of, and I believe that if that gentleman probably would have been maybe driving 40 miles an hour, that wreck might not have happened, and that could have cost lives. We have school buses that drive that road every day, create a lot of dust. When you got a vehicle that's that big, they do create a lot of dust. So it's a danger to the bus and the other vehicles that are coming from the other direction and that are following the bus both. I believe if we post a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit on that road, it will make it a safer road to travel, and people that are entering from their houses and stuff through the access roads will be able to see better because of eliminate some of the dust if we lower the speed limit.
Thank you.
Yes, my name's Darrell Allison. I live at 3442 South Burma Road. And I've been listening, but in my opinion, the speed limit's not the problem out there. What the problem is the dust. And of course, that's with the white rock. The suggestion that I would make is that if the commissioners would go back to using the native gravel like we used to use, that eliminated 90% of your dust. I've been talking to Mr. Cabe and telling him what a solution would work on that road, and he kind of agreed with me. But basically what you have to do is you have to eliminate that white rock off there completely. Get that powder off, then put your native gravel down, get it sheep-footed in, and then put sand on top of it, and you'll eliminate 90% of your dust, and you won't have any problems with speed, dust, or anything.
Right. Where does that native rock you're talking about come from?
Out of pastures.
The old,
We used to have several
just
pits.
red gravel pits kind of.
Yes, sir. It's a clay rock mixture. And when you get it compacted down, it'll get just as hard as concrete. And then in order to keep it from getting slick, you have to dust the top with sand. And you put that sand on it, then you don't have your dust.
Very good.
I remember the old red gravel they put on our roads. They just took out of the hills, and like you said, then they took a sheep's foot.
Yes, sir.
Made a pretty rough road for quite a while, but when it got worked down in, it was still a good road what's down there. But of course, this is another county that I was in then, and I don't believe they have any of those pits now to get that out of, do they? Do we have any pits that we could get anything out of?
Nope, all them pits was closed.
Yeah, it's not that it's not still in the county. It's that a decision was made at some time in the past for the county to get out of that. Now, whether that was a good decision is debatable.
Right.
But
Well,
the county used to mine its own rock in the county.
I talked to somebody in the last 2 weeks, and I guess the Chapman area, you can't even get rock there right now. Is that correct?
I don't know.
We bought enough ahead. We haven't had to worry about it, but I know Ottawa County can't get any rock right, and they've had to go to Lincoln. And some of the harder rock's pretty hard on tires, that Lincoln
Yeah.
rock.
And the quality of the limestone that we use is deteriorating. It's a characteristic of the strata. The good stratas of the limestone have been used, and we're kind of down into the softer materials. But maybe re-examining the use of some of those natives.
That might be a good job for the new commissioners coming on to start in and look at and see if we could mine our own rock and possibly save money. Because rock has gone up a lot in price since.
Yes, sir.
Since
Anyway,
we last
that's the
did
only
it.
solution that I can tell you. We'll work on that road.
That's
Okay.
Thank you for your comments. Further public comment? I'll bring it back to the commission for further discussion and or a motion. And I think I said this last week to you, Neil. I don't want you to feel like you have a
That's okay.
bullseye on your
Yeah,
back
you don't,
because last week it kind of felt like, and as far as the more that I thought about it, for me to go against an expert's recommendation or staff recommendation. It has to be a level that rises to, and I think Waterwell just kind of hits that. I just think that, and getting back to your comment later, this is maybe just part of a discussion. I think that the next commission is going to have to look at a more long-lasting solution to
and
this.
we were looking at that.
And you
just
have,
couldn't do
and,
it.
and I didn't mean it
have
that
other
we
things going on.
haven't. I just think that when these things come up, Waterwell continually comes up, and I just think it's going to be a challenge for us for a while. So, but I'm in support of lowering the speed limits, at least at this point, until maybe the new commission gets involved in a longer term project.
And I too wanted to say, Neil, that it's nothing personal, but even though you supplied us with wonderful stats and wonderful information and why it doesn't help and why it would help, or whatever, both sides of the issue, I think there's exceptions to every rule. And one of the questions, or part of the discussion was, who's going to enforce that we're lowering that speed limit? And it's not so much an enforcement thing. I think you're right. There's people that'll go down Ohio at 70 miles an hour, and the question is, are they going to get caught? No matter where you are, the question is, are you going to get caught? I think it'll bring awareness to the driver. They'll suddenly see it posted, and they'll see that they're going too fast, and maybe yes, maybe not. The other thing is, if our Saline County officers or a highway patrolman happens to be in that area and they see that someone is abusing that law or is abusing that speed limit, that'll be the only enforcement there. That'll be the only citation probably given. If it happens enough and enough of our officers happen to be on that road, there's going to be enough of those tickets issued, and hopefully that'll send a message out to people that are using that consistently that we have lowered the speed limit for a reason, regardless if there's statistics on how many wrecks have been there and how many people have been injured and how many people have had close calls or whatever the issue is. But I just think in the short amount of time that I've been here, Waterwell Road has just always been on top of everybody's mind. So I too, after listening to this discussion for weeks, I too am in favor, until we decide what we're going to do with rock, until other future commissioners decide.
I like that point that he made.
I do too.
I'd never heard that.
I like that a lot too. I don't know what the cost is going to be. Concerned with, I know what it's costing us right now to change this speed limit. I just don't know what that cost is going to be then to change the rock on there and maintain it, in the future. Obviously, we don't have the funds to pave that road, which I think is the number one thing that might be best. But anyway, so don't take it personally either from me.
Well, I think, we talk about 40 mile an hour is too low, and yet we've got blacktop roads that are 40 mile an hour all over the county, and they don't have the dust problem. So why, if we're going to change things, we need to, if it's not okay to lower that to 40, we need to go out and look at all the other ones and change them back to 55. And so it's and I think we're acting on this personally as some people that live in that area have come in and complained to it, and because we're their commissioners, we want to act on it. And this is a special. And
motion.
So anyway, if there's not anything else, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay. Commissioner Guile, please.
One thing that I'd like to say about that, I think when all of us took our driver's test, I believe it says safe and prudent on all dirt roads in the state of Kansas. And it don't say it just for Saline County. I think it's all over the state. But I do have a problem with the dust. I think that when you talk about doing it the way Daryl's talking about, I think it's pretty expensive because the sheet footing and stuff for that mile is going to take lots and lots of dirt work. And then where do you get your fabric to put on that road? I have no idea. But I just wanted to remind you that safe and prudent, if you all took your driver's test, we all know what the speed limit is on a dirt road. It don't have to be a sign, because there are no signs in any part of the county that I can recall other than just on some of the blacktop roads. I just can't think of any of them that I can I drive all of them roads, but I can't remember seeing a speed limit on any road like that. And if so, you're going to have a whole lot of requests for signs, because out here on Ohio Street, if you want to talk about dust, that might be the dustiest road, along with that one where the blacktop plant is down there. You can't see for a week down there. Holmes Road out here by the elevator, you can't even see the elevator from off of Country Club Road. I think you're really you're looking for everybody to request to have signs on all these little roads like Holmes Road for sure.
Thank
And
you.
it isn't just about Waterwell Road. It's about the whole county.
But it's so much more traveled though in our.
Oh, no.
You know, it's
There-
traveled more.
There's roads that's more traveled than that one. That one right there at Holmes Road coming from the south is probably the most traveled 1 mile that I've ever seen traveled.
You think that's
with
correct?
semi-tractors and trailers.
I can't remember how they rank at the,
No,
I mean,
I
it
was
is
pretty high.
It is high
I was thinking
volume.
Ohio Street and Waterwell
Holmes and
South
City
were the
Roads.
highest
Yeah.
too.
I'd say it's
Well,
probably
anyway,
higher than that.
Yeah, it's high.
Pertaining to this
Yeah.
particular road, and I would, Mr. Chairman, I'd move we reduce the speed limit to 40 mile an hour on West Waterwell Road from Burma to, what's the next mile? Lightville. And I might add that we have an estimate of about $1,200 for the expensive signs will be included, and that would prove those funding for the signs.
Very good.
And there's only one thing that I would have a request on that also, is what's it going to do to undo that if we do a re-dirt surface out there, if you want to reduce it back, I mean, bring it back to just wide open? Is there any problem to doing that after you once put the signs up?
Just be a reversal of a commission
The
decision.
reverse of the commission,
Okay.
Yeah.
they can do that.
Yep.
I'll second Commissioner Price's motion.
All right. There is a motion to reduce the speed limit to 40 miles an hour on West Waterwell Road from Burma Road to Lightville. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Yay, or
Yeah.
nay.
Yeah, that's fine. Passes 3-1. All right. Thank you for your report. Item number 4.
This is request for action 202-16, a septic tank policy with David Neal, Planning and Zoning Director.
Mr. Neal?
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
For a while, we've been talking about the septic tank inspection policy, and we have this all. We did some more discussion last week. Part of that discussion was permit fees, and just as a reminder, that is going as a separate resolution. We're working on it. That's something that affects the budget, and there are a lot bigger budget concerns going on, so that'll be a future discussion. With this, like I said, we met last week. We talked a little bit more about it. The policy hasn't changed since the last time we had this drafted up. Basically, the process, we're going to inspect the septic tanks when there's a real estate sale, which we've been doing all along. We will end up pumping out the tank and making sure that the tank is still watertight, which is pretty much what we've been doing this whole time. And then the big change here is that undersized tanks that are still performing correctly would be grandfathered in. And we would most likely just leave it as a recommendation that you might want to upgrade that, but won't require it. And that's all I have for you for this one.
All right. We've been working on this for quite some time, and want to thank my fellow commissioners that originally voted against it to actually come up with great ideas and recrafting this, and I think it's going to work. So thank you for all.
And our
all your work.
conservation department,
you
reported that
mentioned
they're
that,
very
yeah.
happy with this change because they don't want to see a tank that is working properly to be replaced, because we do have funding in the county for the conservation that they can do, I think 9 or 11 a year. And a lot of people are getting tanks replaced that the money doesn't need to be spent, and now other people that really need the repairs, we'll be able to get the funding. So they told me yesterday that they really appreciate this change.
We have any public comment on this issue? I know we've been doing this for quite some time, but
Karen Shade, 111 Wisconsin. The 2013 through the 2016 commission has been criticized for not getting along with the city. I'm wondering, as you consider the septic tank inspection policy, if you're going to find yourself crosswise with the state. For reasons that are beyond my comprehension, the state created the policy, the statutes it has now, and all solutions breed new problems. So in some ways, the way you're addressing this might be an improvement on something that was handled at the state level. I can understand that fully. And if I were a member of a household trying to sell a house where it had an undersized septic tank, I might be very appreciative of what you're doing. But I also kind of wonder if this wasn't considered when those statutes were made. I have no way of knowing. But I tend to, I guess I just want to put the public audience on alert that in the future, perhaps the state may take some action, be it bureaucratic action or court action, to fix this back to whatever their intention is. I have a sneaking suspicion that perhaps a new homeowner who finds himself with an undersized tank that develops problems might be prone to litigation, and they might come back at this commission. And I would say you've had a chance to have legal counsel on this, and I hope you've taken steps to protect yourselves, because it's the taxpayers who end up paying if there's that kind of litigation. For Commissioner Smith, I had pulled a verse from Matthew chapter 7, verse 3, that says, "Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the log in your own?" This county commission has its own septic tank problems. They happen at the jail. And I just wish you all would have put the time and energy into planning and discussing and looking at what the long-term realities of having the jail in its present location are going to be, because that will also be equally costly. So I would just caution, think about, this is potentially creating issues with the state, and there might be ramifications here. It's way beyond my ability to understand them, but I can read between the lines, and I see a need for caution.
Karen, I'd like to mention that you're not reading between the lines.
No.
That when we do an when somebody comes in for a building permit and have for so many of the last years, they have to put the bigger tank in.
Right.
You cannot come in, and this is only for something that was done before these came out 20 years ago. So we're following state regulations. And,
Well, and since I'm not a member of the state,
right.
I can't judge
Well,
it.
you can't judge it. No, you're right. Neither can we, but we are following all the requirements that the state asks us to do, and we're requiring other counties to do the same thing.
I hope that's
Well,
true.
it is true, isn't it? It's true, isn't it?
Yeah, the state
Yeah.
will be okay with it. Their primary concern is the watertight integrity of the tank and having untreated effluent go into the groundwater. And talking on the legal protection end, one thing that we always put on all of our inspections is that this is not a guarantee. We are just making sure to the best of our ability that it appears to be working.
All right.
We also put out we put any comments in there that we find. We'll get tanks all the time that the tank is working. We just want to caution you that this looks a little uncertain, or we have a problem. The baffle might be breaking down a little bit, or if there's a problem, it might not be a specific statutory requirement or a code requirement, but if we see problems that we need to address for the new homeowner, we try to put it all out there for everybody.
Well, if the baffle's broken down, it fails. Correct?
True,
Yeah.
but if we start seeing a little corrosion
Well.
where it might be a year or two and that thing's going to break, we'll warn you.
Okay, good. Any other public comment? Bring it back to the commission for further discussion or action.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt RFA 202-16 and approve the changes to the septic tank policy as submitted by staff.
I'll
Did
second
you
that.
ask for a motion, or did you ask for a?
I asked for discussion or a motion. If you would,
I had a discussion. and
that's
I would
fine. You
just-
can still do it after there's a motion. There is a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. Anything further discussion?
Don't need to do it now.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 3-1. Item number 5.
This is our request for action 188-16. It's a home occupation code, again with David Neal, Planning and Zoning Director.
Well, for this one, this has gone through the Planning Commission. We're looking at improving our home occupation codes, try to support businesses that are out there, and hopefully get more people starting businesses if they want. The biggest point that we are going to talk about is making sure that existing businesses can continue to operate with no problems and how we handle those complaints. But I'm going to remind everybody of what this code does. We're allowing a home business in any home in the county, provided that there's no outside storage, you do it inside, and you have no employees. This is what we've always done with our code. What we're doing new is allowing in agricultural zone properties that they can have up to 5 employees, they can have some outside storage as long as it's screened from public view. And most properties are large enough that anything that they have is so far back off the road that they don't even need to put up extra screening. This would allow more contractor yards if somebody's running their own contractor business, home mechanics. It allows a little bit more in the county than we normally do. Like I said, we are concerned about the existing businesses. The big question that always comes up is if the existing business is there and the neighborhood changes, well, if the business hasn't changed, then what's the problem? If the business has changed, then I can see that the neighborhood would have a problem. And to address that, talking to the Planning Commission, the best way to handle it is to have those complaints going to the Planning Commission. That way you're not having a single person judge the business and judge the situation, whether that's me or somebody else. You have a board that will hear all the facts and make their decision. Part of what we talked about there was a provision for a protest petition. So if a majority of the neighborhood had a problem with the business, they could file a petition with the Planning Commission. It would then require a 3/4 vote. We struck out all that part of the language, so now it would just be a majority vote no matter what the situation. Makes it a lot easier to go through and a lot easier to administrate. So the basic process for everybody, if you're already in business, keep running your business. We'd always like it if you stop by and register with us. It's free, and it takes care of a lot of complaints and calls. So when somebody calls in and says, this guy's doing whatever out here, I can say, yes, he's registered to do his business of whatever. And then the complaints would go to the Planning Commission. It would be just a regular majority vote to approve or reject a business. And then any appeals would go to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
So a resident can't just start selling pumpkins without coming in here and telling you that he's going to open up shop?
He can, but we would prefer that you come in and tell us.
Okay.
That way, when your
If no one
neighbor,
ever complains, though, if no one ever complains,
I'd
then...
never know about it.
Okay, so he's not breaking any
No.
laws.
I just prefer it because when your neighbor comes in and says, well, this guy's selling pumpkins and doing all this, then I can say, yes, I know.
Okay.
He's allowed.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Now there's, say that a state law comes into effect, like we've got a body shop operating in the county, and the state law has come in and said you have to have a paint booth that is OSHA approved or whatever the approval is. They're still going to have to meet state laws. That's
Yes.
got nothing to do with us.
Yes, and if you
And,
can't meet a state
and-
law, that would be a reason
And
for us
if
to
the
say
state
no.
says you can't have more than 5 salvage vehicles in your yard, that has got nothing to do with us. That's the
Right.
state law. So we still have to follow rules from the state
Exactly.
regardless. Or we have to have explosive lights in the paint area. You know, I mean, there's state laws that it doesn't matter if you live in the city or anywhere. If you live in Kansas, you have to follow those rules.
Exactly.
All All right.
You
Any
know,
public comment on this? I'm sorry, you still got
Yes,
going?
I was
Okay.
going to ask him one more question. Apparently, we had tabled this, is that correct?
Yes.
So that we're going to need the two motions today?
No, you had, well, originally you had tabled it, then we corrected that, what you wanted to do as far as I understood. You passed it back down to the Planning Commission for more discussion. The Planning Commission has made a unanimous vote with the removal of that protest petition language.
Okay.
So now it would just take a vote of the vote of the County Commission to approve or reject or change the code.
Okay, so we don't need to
The
put it
first
back
one,
in.
Pick it
the
up,
first
no.
one on here says remove.
Remove from the table for consideration and possible action.
In that case, that's my mistake for leaving that in there with the,
Okay, so we
Gotcha.
don't,
Report,
okay,
no.
all right. That's all, I need a clarification on
you had
that.
already done that.
Robert's Rule of Order thing.
Yes, trying to-
She's smarter than me on that, so I'm sorry for interrupting. That doesn't mean much, does it? All right. Do we have any public comment on this?
Jim Weiss, 4971 West Slope Road. I have a question on a business operating or wanting to start up in the county. If there is a covenant within the county in a homeowners association, does this circumvent that covenant?
No, with covenants are not enforced by Saline County. So in a case like this, let's say you're running a mechanic business. As Saline County, I would allow it, but your neighborhood covenant says no. If I knew about it, I would probably tell you ahead of time that, well, you better check with your covenants. It's not me, it's the covenants. Your neighbors can enforce that covenant on you, and that would probably go to court upstairs here to decide.
Thank you.
You would go back to your board.
And Saline County is out of that decision.
Further public comment? Bring it back to the commission for discussion or action.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve RFA 188-16, the Home Occupation Code, and approve the changes as recommended by staff.
I'll second that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign? Passes.
Did you say something on that, Jim? Did you say
I said
aye?
aye.
I'm aye.
Yeah. Passes 4-0.
Here down there.
Okay. Item number 6.
We have a juvenile statistics update with Carnell Igana, Transportation Corporal of the Sheriff's Office.
Good morning.
Saline County Transport Supervisor. As of present, we only have one juvenile that we have housed in Junction City.
Amen.
We had 9 bookings for the month. We had 11 mugging prints that where they came in, it was released to their parents.
I don't ever remember hearing one prisoner. This is good.
Well, we had one here not too long ago.
But
Yeah.
on our report though from
Well,
him.
the last
that's a-
three or four
Last
days
trip
we've
had
been
one.
down to one. They done
Yep.
released them. They done turned them over to placement or whatever. And this one, we got rid of one female yesterday. We took her to placement, and this young man come in yesterday.
Almost a zero, huh?
Yeah, I thought we was until he come in.
Yeah,
But we passed him on the highway.
Oh,
So
man.
there's still a count of ones.
Yeah.
I can remember when 4 years ago when Jim and I came in, there
13.
was what, how many?
13.
Well, but they were full over there with 20.
Yep, they
at the
were.
old
That was loaded.
And then I've seen it come down to 12, and finally the last year maybe 5 and 6, and it's just things.
Well, our average is 4.
Yeah, we've been-
4.2.
Yeah, we've been
I
right
go to
around
that
4 to
meeting
5
tomorrow.
to 6 up and
Yep.
down.
But it wasn't that way 4 years ago.
No,
No.
and it'll drop another point here pretty quick.
Well, that's very
Yeah,
good.
well,
Very good
We had to
report.
go get him to bring him back for court this afternoon. But I doubt if they release him. I
That's a
don't
good
think
report.
he's one that they're gonna release.
All right.
Well, that's a good report.
Today.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank y'all. Appreciate
Thank
seeing
you.
y'all.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment on the corporal's report?
Good report.
Very good. All right, I'll move on to item number 7.
We have a county appraiser's update with Sean Robertson, county appraiser.
Morning.
Morning, Commissioners. This time of year, we have concluded the bulk of our field work or property inspections that we're required to do for the year, with the exception of building permits, which we will start on soon. Right now, we're performing field checks of sales of properties, which do seem to still be strong. We're performing some land and depreciation analysis in order to get ready to set 2017 values in a few months. Currently, we have 4 Board of Tax Appeals hearings pending coming up in the next month. Mr. Montoya and I will be traveling to Topeka to take those on. Coming up in the next couple of months, we'll be doing comparable sales of residential properties in order to set 2017 values. We'll also be examining some income and expense information from commercial properties in order to set those values for next year. And as always, once people get their tax bills coming up, we will have some payment under protest hearings that we'll be doing at that time. And then right around the first of the year, we will begin setting 2017 values and send those out the end of February.
I mentioned to a few people about we discussed the 2.5 tax for commercial, and if it's being used for storage, it can be reduced to residential prices, 1.1, is that right, or 0.011, or?
It's the assessment rate is 25% for commercial property and 11.5 for residential.
1.5, okay. And I've had some comments back that the time to do that is after November when you get your. Can you inform us when they should do that if they want to challenge that fact of whether they're using it for storage? What's the procedure of doing it?
Correct. We can make changes to properties either just after the time they receive their value notices in March, and if that time lapses, then we need to wait until the taxes are due and paid, and that's why it's called a payment under protest. They can pay the first half of the taxes that are due, and we'll schedule a hearing and make any necessary changes.
So in November they could pay under protest would be the time to.
Correct.
And then in March, okay. So I just wanted, I heard it from them, but I wanted to hear it from you so I know what.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Is there any public comment on this? Sean, as always, thank you. Very good. Item number 8.
We have a Health Department update with Jason Tiller, Health Department Director.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning.
So, for the second time today,
Yeah.
maternal child health, one of the things that we had been wanting to do for quite a while was develop fatherhood training programs, and just due to timing and resources, we haven't really been able to do that. But St. Francis was able to secure a grant from somewhere that they have an ongoing program now that is addressing a lot of those classes and training topics that we had talked about. So we are doing some collaborative work to help support them in that endeavor, and also Sherry and possibly myself at times maybe doing some guest presentations at some of those classes. So there'll be more to come on that. And then we, as always, right now this week are doing the Becoming a Mom classes, and those are still continuing to attract new moms and dads, and showing significant outcomes for better births too. For Heartland, for the family consultant, the one that we had hired a few months ago had decided to resign, and Heartland was having, and is still having, some issues as far as numbers of clients, and they've been low for a little bit now. And so in the spring, Lisa Larson and I, she's the director of Heartland Programs, had talked about the possibility that this grant for Heartland, with this being the third year out of the renewals, that whether they would be able to absorb this grant, or what kind of things might be coming down the road. Well, after the new employee resigned, we've discussed it again, and Heartland is able to absorb that position. So at the end of this grant year, we will no longer have that joint grant with Heartland anymore, and they will have ownership of all of their family consultants, which we will still be partnering with them, you know, sharing resources and referrals. We just won't be sharing this grant anymore, which I don't have a number of what the savings to the county is going to be, but at least for the next 3 quarters, we will only be paying one person as opposed to the 2 that we had budgeted. So there'll already be a reduction in the cost for that.
Mm-hmm.
And we as a county were offering those services had they need them. I mean, but if the need's not there, there's no sense of.
Right, the need had been there, which is why we had continued to do that.
And we did support that need, so.
Yes.
But the need's not there, then that's another situation.
And so, like I said, and Heartland is in a position, based off of the funding that they receive from federal levels, that they will be able to absorb that one position that we still have. So that way they'll still be able to continue services, but we won't have just one employee paid from a grant through us working over there anymore. And that'll streamline that whole process and kind of take some of that confusion out of it as far as reporting and evaluations and so forth. For child care licensing, they've been quite busy this last couple months. One of the things is there are some new requirements and programs and training for child care providers that will be coming out from DCF, and that information, child care licensing, will be sending out to child care providers, and they're including it as part of their orientations. They're also have started presenting at the Becoming a Mom classes to help parents with the process of what to look for in child care providers and in child care facilities to make sure that they're getting quality child care, and also looking for new child care providers as well.
Our licensing in Saline County, do you know how many, I had a question from somebody today, how many we actually license in Saline County?
How many child care providers?
No, how many, well, actual,
or
like where people take their children to be, that we inspect. I guess that's a little different.
You mean as far as facilities? I'll have to find out about that number. I don't know it right off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Between the home facilities and the commercial facilities, I'd have to find that out.
And we do McPherson's too, don't we?
McPherson Auto, which is on the.
And they have quite a few in McPherson.
Jason, before you move on, you might want to mention on the child care licensing what we approved upstairs this morning, since it's for the people that are watching us on television.
Yes, thank you. The last time the base rates for child care licensing were looked at was in 2009. So due to inflation, and we had looked at it, and the commissioners approved this morning to raise those base rates for licensing fees by $5, which will go into effect on the 1st of January of 2017.
Right.
Oops. Here, go back. My glasses on, so I couldn't read that. WIC's caseload has been holding pretty steady. The WIC budget from the state had the funds in it this year, so that we were able to send 2 of the staff to the National WIC Conference in Denver, which is not something we have been able to do in the last few years. And so they were able to bring back information about WIC and dietary practices and nutrition that will benefit not only the rest of the WIC staff, but benefit our clients as well. For clinic, here a couple weeks ago, we did our annual community flu clinic. We had 441 people and adults and children come through and get flu shots that day. And a couple of things that we added into it. One of them is using the Saline Area United Way Volunteer Hub in order to register and track volunteers, which we would also try to use in the event of a running a point of distribution in the case of disease outbreak as well for volunteer management, but also working with emergency management for their mobile salamander system that they used in order to create an event that's happening and then be able to scan our individual ID badges into the event, and then when it's done be able to scan us out of the event, creating that digital record. So we got an opportunity to play with that too with them. And then just as a reminder, for city, county, school, and district court employees, we have the flu clinic over at the health department from noon to 5 p.m. tomorrow. Home health, we've been working on the SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and training, as well as restructuring. And Marilyn may have mentioned some this morning as we've been looking at that vacant registered nurse position. And we've been doing some brainstorming, which may end up with kind of a hybrid position that will help fulfill some needs that home health has, as well as some needs for health education as well. And so we're working on that one, and more to come on that. Now, I want to preface this about rabies. We do not have any kind of issues with rabies. We're not having an increase in the number of rabies cases, but it just needs to be mentioned, especially as temperatures get cooler and animals may be looking for warmer areas to get into. Rabies is 100% preventable. A lot of the people that die from rabies are usually children under 15 because they see a cute furry animal that they want to play with and then get bit. We've had a lot more tested this year for rabies than we did in 2015, pretty much 16 this year as compared to 1 last year as far as being tested for possible rabies. But what I want to really bring up is that we had 1 bat that tested positive that had bit somebody, and they've gone through treatment. But bats are a carrier of rabies. They, if seen inside of homes, if seen inside of public buildings or schools or anything like that, they need to be dealt with very carefully. They're not a cute, cuddly creature to be handled unless you are trained to handle them. And if there is concern about whether somebody has been bit, of course, then they need to contact us at the health department or contact the animal control. If there's an infestation of bats, they can also contact exterminators to get them removed. Urine and feces from bats can also carry other diseases that's not, you really don't want to have inside of a public place either. Zika right now, I mention it mainly because the numbers for those that have been infected with Zika in the U.S. and worldwide continue to grow. We do not, and I want to emphasize, do not have any evidence of Zika in the mosquitoes here in Kansas. We did have 1 case of Zika here in Saline County that was travel related. One thing I want to emphasize is that even though it's starting to get cold, a lot of the mosquito population will basically be gone. Their habitats may be frozen over for the winter. But now is the time to start looking at some of the stuff, especially those areas where water can accumulate and then allow breeding for mosquitoes in the spring, especially waste tires, which is something that is often overlooked. You can drive up and down any road and see tires hanging off a fence post for no hunting, no trespassing. But simple measures such as even drilling a drain hole into tires like that to keep water from accumulating will help with preventing mosquitoes from breeding. So we'll be working on, as part of that Ebola grant extension for this morning, we'll also be working on some more education stuff over the winter so that it's already in people's mindset come spring as opposed to waiting once it starts getting warm in the spring to start emphasizing it. And these are the investigations for disease investigation for August and September. There are some additional cases for blood lead poisoning. Doesn't really emphasize that there is a bigger picture or a greater issue. KDHE has lowered the cutoff limit to meet the CDC recommendation of 5 micrograms instead of what was originally 10 micrograms. So that has brought some of the additional cases for investigation, but the blood levels have all been very low. And we'll still continue to follow that. And a follow-up as far as the aggregate report from the investigation that KDHE did earlier this summer. They said that they had some things to finish, but they should have that report out by the end of this month. And are there any questions?
Questions today? Good report as always. Is there any public comment? All right, just moving on then. Is there any other business that needs to come before the commission today? Announcements, sir. I know you got one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Yes, we are open tonight till 9 p.m. In our office, room 215. The front door out there on Ash will be open. The rest of them will be locked, of course. But tonight till 9 p.m. for voter registrations. We've been very, very busy the last few days, people getting updated, and as well as applying for advance ballots by mail. We'll start mailing those out tomorrow on the 19th, and anybody would like an advance ballot by mail, it's an application process. You have to apply and sign and get your driver's license number on there. But we'll start mailing those tomorrow. We've got between probably a little over 800 to mail actually at this point. And we start in-office voting on the 24th of October in our office. Office hours 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And that's it. Come out and get registered. Voter registration, I didn't say, does close tonight at 9 p.m. October 18th is 21 days out from the election, and we do have to close voter registration at that time. Obviously, if you move in the meantime, get married, change or divorce, change the name, we'll let you change that up through election day. We just have you vote provisionally at that time. We're not going to refuse a vote to you, but be good to have it taken care of so you won't have to deal with that on election day.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right, just as a reminder for next week, our scheduled study session in the morning will be at the Road and Bridge Department starting at 9, open to the public since all the commissioners will be there. Any other announcements today? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It passes. Thank you. Let's talk.